Hello, you're watching The Code Guy, and in this one we're going to talk list and dictionary comprehension. Let's get right to it. Here I've got a very simple bit of code. I've got a function to check if a number is odd. I've got something that's generating base data. Let's pretend this is coming into our program externally. And then basically I'm looping through the base data and only keeping things that are even. So all the odd numbers are disappearing. So if we quickly run this, you'll see we get a list 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So that's working. List comprehension allows you to do this kind of thing, i.e. manipulate lists and filter data out with far fewer lines of code, but also at a much higher speed. So what does a list comprehension look like? Well, if we take our lnums out here, which creates our new empty list to take in our numbers, and we then do for num in lbase data, so basically what that for loop is doing, and we say, okay, I want num. This basically means it will create a list of numbers for each number in lbase data. We can also add a filter with an if. So if not is odd and then the number, and this should give us the same result. So let's comment this out and run it again. And again, we get the same numbers, but we've now written a single line of code which does all of that for us. Also note that this happens as like an operation, like calling a function. So you can actually use it as the return of a function. Now, one thing to note about list comprehensions is if you use external functions, they will be slower. So what we can do here to simplify the code even further is to move this return in here. So if we do if num modulus 2, and that basically means divide the number by 2 and return the remainder. And if it's even, it will always have a remainder of 0. So now we can get rid of this function. And now our code looks incredibly simple. If we run this again, exactly the same result. And it was really, really fast. And this can handle really large record sets. So if we increase this to 1,000,000 and run it again, you'll see it's done that really, really fast. Okay, that was a really simple example of how to do a list comprehension. Let's go to something a little more difficult. In this script, we're generating a Cartesian product of alpha and beta. A Cartesian product basically is every combination of alpha against beta. So here I'm looping through list 1, looping through list 2, and basically creating a tuple, which I'm then appending to the list. So if we run this now, you'll see 110, 120, 130, 140, 210, 220, 230. So it's going through each combination until it's gone through absolutely every combination of those numbers. Now to rewrite this as list comprehension is exactly the same. So I'm going to do for num in alpha, for num in beta, and then we are just going to take these tuples like this, and that's basically done exactly the same job. So list through loop 1, each time list through loop 2, and then take the results and put them in a tuple, which is then in a list comprehension. Comment out the rest of the code now and run it, and we get exactly the same result. Now, one thing to note here is when I first started using list comprehensions, I thought this was weird and the wrong way round, because surely the inner one should go further in, but really it reflects how it would be if it was a for loop. So you take your first for loop and then your second one. And you can see here, we're really shrinking down the lines of code. Okay, so that's list comprehension. Now onto dictionary comprehension, which is very, very similar. Except instead of using the square brackets, we use the dictionary brackets. Okay, in this example, we have a list of IDs and a list of file positions. We then zip those two together into a list of tuples, and then we're going to build a dictionary out of the key values here. So our for loop goes through the dataset, separates our key and our value, and then if the key is even, we're going to write it to the dictionary of key equals value. So if we run this, here you can see key 2, 256, key 4, 384, and so on. To rewrite this as dictionary comprehension is really straightforward again. We're going to do for key value in dataset if key modulus 2 equals 0. And in here, we're just going to do key and value, just as you would as if you were defining a dictionary itself. So if we comment out this now and run the code, you'll see we get 2, 256, 4, 384, and so on. So list and dictionary comprehensions are a really good way of looping through code. The only time I really wouldn't use them is if it becomes so complex that it's really hard to read. And bear in mind, if it does become hard to read, there's several tricks. This doesn't care if this is all on one line or not. So I can split down my code to make it more readable. And it's exactly the same as these ones too. So I can put each of those loops on a different line if I wanted to. So there are ways of making it more readable and still getting the same result. Now there is a third type of comprehension called set comprehension. We haven't really touched sets yet, however we will be touching them in the next video. Sets are like a cross between a list and a dictionary. Or at least that's how I see them. You'll find a video all about sets in the top left. And with that, thanks for watching, and I hope to catch you on the next one.